is the Toyota LandCruiser 250 series. Previously, the Prado has been offered with the J70, J90, J120, and J150 series, of which the J120 and the J150 series are very popular and they have been very successful in the Kenyan market. Now, in 2023, Toyota brought a new revised edition of the Prado and they named it the 250 series. So in today's episode, we are going to discuss this car, check out what is different from the previous generation, and most probably that will give us an insight whether it's going to be a successful offering in the Kenyan market. So this being a new generation of the Toyota LandCruiser Prado, of course there are changes here and there. Of course you can see that the bodies are different, and of course the mechanical setup in some cases has not been changed, but there are new changes that I'm going to talk about in this video. So generally, when you're looking at the Toyota LandCruiser Prado, it is a car that has been very successful in terms of off-roading capabilities, and of course it has been built to last. That's why most probably you can see even the older, the J90, the J120 series are still on the road. So technically, when you're looking at this car, even from the body structure, you can still see that it still retains the capabilities of an off-roader, even from the body design, because you can see that it is a car that looks aggressive and it's boxy for, of course, off-roading purposes. But first, let's start with the design of this car from the face. Up front, this car looks somewhat boxy because you can see even the lights have been revised and they are now rectangular, of which they have these daytime running strip. The grille is now different from the previous one. You don't have that traditional Toyota logo. Instead, you have this name here, pretty similar to what the Toyota FJ Cruiser has. Technically, the bumper, the fog lights are now actually a little bit higher, of course, to give you some good provision when you're going off-road, so that you don't spoil them. So up front, it's going to maintain a minimalist design, but it's now, let me say, more rugged. That is actually the best way to put it. And of course, when you can see the ground clearance and the way the bumper has been designed, you're not going to scratch the bumper or destroy it, especially if you are doing off-roading in tight situations. It makes the approach and the departure angles a little bit better. The wheel sizes are pretty similar to what the previous 150 series are used to have, because these ones are actually 225, 65, 18-inch wheels. Of course, the ground clearance is also pretty similar. It's something like 22 centimeters of ground clearance. That is why I was saying initially that the car doesn't lose any of its off-roading capabilities. The side mirrors, they are now big and they have been moved a little bit backwards on the door, of course, to give you more functionality or more visibility when you're on the driver's seat. Now, on the side profile, coming to the rear side, this is how this car looks like. Of course, it is now adopting a boxy shape. It is not a design that is going to appeal to very many people, but that is how the new Prado 250 series looks like. You can open this lid this way, just like you could do in the previous 150 series. Of course, if maybe you want to access the car. And of course, this car comes as a 7-seater. Of course, it is just like the 150 series. Away from the minimalist back parking sensors here, this car also comes with a single exhaust. Maybe if they could have given it a double exhaust, they could actually make it sportier. But it comes with a single exhaust. You have a full-size spare wheel down here. Of course, the engine is very healthy. You can see that it's giving out water. If your chemistry teacher was one of the best, you know that combustion of a petrol should result in CO2 and water. So it's technically a new car, 65 kilometers on the clock. Generally, that is how the car looks like. There is not much to say. So if you have a lot of expectations with the Prado J250 series, I'll advise that you tame your expectations a little bit. So let's understand the engine choices which are offered with this LandCruiser Prado 250 series. Of course, it's a very big bonnet, as you can see. Under the hood of this Toyota LandCruiser 250 series, you have a 2.7-liter naturally aspirated petrol engine. It's called 2TR. Basically, this engine has been applied in very many Toyota LandCruiser Prados from the previous generations. It was in the J150 series. It's still in some J120 series. So technically, this is a 4-cylinder naturally aspirated petrol engine. It's called 2TR. And this engine is married to a 6-speed gearbox, of course, and it sends power to all the 4 wheels, of course, because this is an off-roader. Of course, power has to be sent to all the 4 wheels. Now, this is one of the engine choices. 2.7 liter natural aspirated 4-cylinder 2TR petrol. Another engine choice for this Toyota LandCruiser 250 series is the 1GD. That is the 2.8 liter turbo diesel, of which it is my favorite. I normally tend to like diesels over petrols when it comes to the LandCruisers. That is the 2.8 liter 1GD. Of course, in other markets, they have of course introduced a diesel variation with some hybrid assist. I've not checked one. Of course, I'm waiting to see how that development is going to look like in the near future. Now, when you're looking at the mechanical setup of this Prado 250 series versus the 150 series, you can see that they have still carried over some engines and of course the gearbox. For instance, the 2.7 liter here is still applied in other cars. You've seen the 2.8 liter in the 2.8 liter, that is the 1GD, of course, being applied in the Hilux, Fortuner, even in the Prado 150 series. So technically, the body is an entire new setup, but they have still carried on some engines. Of course, the new hybrid. Their new diesel with the hybrid assist is what can actually be called a new engine or a new powertrain setup. Of course, I'm really waiting anxiously to see how that development is going to come up, and of course, the reliability of a diesel and a hybrid, especially in a Land Cruiser. Now, we've not interacted with the LandCruiser 250 series for a long time, but technically, if the car has a 2TR petrol engine and a 6-speed automatic gearbox, if we can use the Prado 120 and the 150 series to base our arguments, then technically you can also say that the J250 is going to be a reliable offering. Technically, because it's the same engine in the 120, 150 series, and the gearbox is similar. So, with just changes in the body, I don't think that is going to affect the tested and tried reputation of the Prado in terms of reliability. Now, the 2TR petrol engine is a pretty solid engine in terms of reliability. Of course, it's something that doesn't need any special treatment. Of course, I'm not a big fan of the 2.7 liter in in the Prado, in the Fortuna, and the Hilux because of power and their fuel consumption numbers. But technically, when you're looking at dependability and reliability, it's something that you can really count on. Now, if I was to pick a Land Cruiser, my pick, of course, is going to be the 1GD. That is the 2.8 turbo diesel, of course, because it has more torque, and of course, the fuel numbers are better. So technically, while this is a new entire platform of which we've not interacted with it for a long time, you can still call it reliable because the mechanical underpinnings of this car are pretty similar to the Prado J120 and the J150 series. Now, in terms of the interior design of this Land Cruiser 250 series, of course, Toyota have tried actually to improve on the 150 series and add some more features. Of course, it is not at the same level as European counterparts of the same year, but for Toyota standards, they have done their level best. Volume control or media controls on the left side, cruise control on the right side. The center console has been revised, 2 cup holders here. Off-roading Arsenal's gear, of course, low high range and low range gears, traction control here, and electric parking brake. Of the climate controls are going to be controlled via buttons here. Big infotainment screen, which the graphics don't look that good. The display, of course, the gauges are now, let me say, they are digital. It's a digital display, which also looks pretty good. You also have a sunroof here, which makes your cabin more lively. Center console, because this is a base model, of course, it's not going to come with a fridge, just like the higher trims, maybe the VXL from the 150 used to come with a fridge, and I'm expecting the same for this generation of the Land Cruiser. So technically, when you're looking at the interior crafting of this car, they have tried, of course, to improve on how it looks like, but it is not going to compare with the European cars of the same year. Something like maybe a GLE of 2024, something like a BMW X5, something like maybe a VW Touareg, something like a Porsche Cayenne. Of course, their interiors are going to be fancier than this one. I've not driven the Land Cruiser 250 series. It's just parking it in the showroom, moving it just for these small distances here. But technically, I cannot give a conclusive statement on how this car is going to drive. But being an SUV, with such an amount of ground clearance, which is 20 something centimeters of ground clearance, and something that is built on the body on frame chassis. I don't think it's going to ride any different from the previous 150 series. So technically, if you don't want to join the bandwagon that normally claims that Prados are unstable, just drive it like a SUV, which is built on the body on frame chassis. But if you want something that handles well or drives well on tarmac, you may look at something like the Porsche Cayenne, the BMW X5, or something like the GLE. But for the Land Cruiser, this is a car that is meant for off-road. So technically, while I've not driven it, from the look of things, the engine that is under the hood, the gearbox, the suspension setup, I can tell you for free, it's not going to handle like a sports car. So when I'm looking at the price tag of this car, which is in the north of 18 million shillings, and the build quality of even the materials in the dashboard, the leather, the seats, versus the competition, I think the Land Cruiser 250 series is not going to be as successful as the Land Cruiser Prado 150 series, but it's just a matter of time. Let us give it time and see whether it will be able to convince very many people into purchasing it, because I feel like at 18 million shillings, someone may even look at the Land Cruiser 200 with a diesel, 4.5 diesel, which will be around a 2020 model. Someone can also look at something like a Lexus LX450D for that 18 million shillings, and it will be a 2020-2021 model, which I think when I'm looking at the build quality of that Lexus LX450D, when I'm looking at the build quality of the Land Cruiser 200 with the 200 with the 4.5 turbo diesel, it looks like a solid car. It looks like a better pick. But of course, there are of course people who are going to like this car with its simple 2.72 TR petrol engine. So those are the few highlights of this Land Cruiser 250 series. The engines are pretty similar to the previous generation, of course, with the addition of a new hybrid diesel, of which I've not interacted with it. The pricing, of course, looks steep compared to the previous generation. You have seen how the body looks like. So the big question is this Land Cruiser 250 series going to be as successful as the Land Cruiser 120 and the 150 series? Let's wait. Time will tell. That is a little bit of information about this Land Cruiser 250 series. If you are new on this platform, remember to subscribe to our channel and of course share our videos to your friends. Alright guys, I'll see you on the next one on 0 to 60 Motoring. Bye for now.